Welcome back. In this lecture, we're going to demonstrate how to perform an upsert. An upsert is a data operation that consolidates the actions of update and insert into one. Upsert functions will essentially update rows that match and insert rows that don't already exist in the table. Knowing how to perform an upsert in SQL Server is an extremely useful skill that you'll definitely need to master. So let's show you how to do that now. First, let's inspect the data that we'll be working with. In the course resources, we've provided an account merge.csv file. Now, we've got this CSV file here. I'm going to open this up. And within this file, we have two account records. The first record already exists in the accounts table. We want to simply update the existing record with new information. The second record is a new record that doesn't exist. So this is the perfect use case for an upsert. So let's go ahead now and dive into how we actually get these records into the database. First, we want to establish a baseline. So let's come back over to our notebook here, and we're going to query everything from the accounts table. Scroll down just a little bit so you can see the results. You can see that we have 500 records here. If you remember from the last video, we actually inserted those using the bulk insert. And now we're going to go ahead and perform an upsert. But before we do that, let's also come to this next cell. And we have two records here from our CSV file that we want to take a look at. Go ahead and run this. And you'll notice we only get the one record back. Like we mentioned, this is the one that's existing. And the other one is one that we still need to insert. Keep in mind here that the email for the current record is different than what's in the CSV file. So that is going to be updated when we perform this upsert. Now, before we can upsert our CSV file, we first need to have a staging table. We could create a permanent table that lives on the database, but for our example, we're going to create a temporary table. Okay, so we're going to actually come up here and copy this, and we're going to put it into our temporary table by simply typing into, and then we're going to say hashtag temp, and then we'll say accounts, just so that it's clear there. Okay, let's go ahead and run this. And you can see we've basically copied those 500 records over into a new staging table. And we actually don't want those records in there because we are going to need to fill it with the new data. So let's go ahead and do a truncate statement. And I'll just come back up here and copy and paste. Okay, and now we should have an empty temp table for us to use, and now we can actually insert those new records from the CSV file into this temp table. To do that, we're going to utilize the bulk insert and then grab the data from our CSV file, just like we did in the previous video. So let's scroll down just a little bit, and I'm actually going to copy and paste from the notes. If you want to learn how the bulk insert function works, you can go ahead and go back to the previous video where we talk about this in a lot more detail. Okay, let's go ahead now and run this. And so we have two rows that were affected. Let's go ahead now and actually just select from that to verify what the data actually looks like. And you can see now we have our two records, one of which, like we said, is already in the table. We're just going to be updating this email, and this is our new record here that we're going to be putting into our database. Okay, so with our data in place, we can now perform an upsert using the merge keyword. Now, there is a lot that goes into creating a merge statement, so I'm just going to copy and paste from my notes, and then I'll explain kind of what's going on here. Go ahead and pull this over. Scroll down just a little bit. So what we're doing here is we're calling the merge keyword, and we're basically telling SQL Server that we want to merge data into this table, which is our accounts table. So we're setting this as our target. That's why we kind of give a little abbreviation there of T. And then we're going to be using this table here. So we're saying this is our source table, the temp accounts table here. And then so that's the first part of the merge statement. The next thing is we need to have a key that we match on. Now this key can be a single column or it can be multiple columns. And because our example is fairly simple, we'll just only have to match on the account ID, and that should be good for our purposes. And so that's what we're doing on this next line here. Now that we have our match condition set, we need to specify what happens when the account IDs are matched and when they're not matched. This sequence functions like a case when in many ways, but looks slightly different. So let's go ahead and talk through that a little bit. So we have our when matched here, and then we're going to add an additional condition here. We're going to say, and the email does not match. Then we want to update the target email with the source email. So we're saying we're going to take this email and we're going to overwrite it with our temp accounts email for the account IDs that match. Okay, so when they're not matched, what we're going to do is simply insert values, and that's just going to insert a new record, basically saying let's do everything, let's insert all the data. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and now run this code. And you can see we get 2 rows affected. Now I'm actually going to come back up to the top here, and we can kind of see the impact on our data. So let's run this one first. You can see that instead of 500 rows, we now have 501 rows. If we come down here to the section where we are just looking at the account IDs, we can run this and see that we now have 2 rows. You can see that the James Potter account has been updated with the new email, and then that new record was inserted just now. With that, we have successfully utilized SQL Server's merge statement and performed an upsert operation. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and drop those in the chat below, and we'll catch up with you at the next video.